Signal.
Hey everyone, Ricardo here. Welcome back to Void Signal. Thank you for being here. This is actually the very first story I'm narrating with my own voice, so please let me know in the comments if you like it or not. Tonight's testimony reached us as a single audio file with no sender, no header, and a timestamp that doesn't agree with itself. We cleaned it up as best we could. The rest you'll have to sit with. Dim the lights, get comfortable. Let's get into it. Every distress call is a fossil. That's the first thing they teach you. A signal travels at the speed of light and no faster, so by the time it reaches you, the thing that sent it is already old, already gone, usually. You aren't hearing a cry for help. You're reading a gravestone that took years to arrive. We were trained to answer them anyway. You always answer. You log the coordinates, you plot the intercept, you burn, knowing the whole way that you are almost certainly flying toward a grave. What they never trained us for was a grave that already had our names on it. My name is Nadia Sorensen. I was the signals officer aboard the recovery vessel Vigil, and according to the only record anyone will ever find, the Vigil was lost with all hands while investigating a derelict in deep space. That record is true. It's also incomplete, because it doesn't say that the derelict we were lost investigating was the Vigil. It doesn't say the distress call we chased for 8 months was our own. And it doesn't say the part I can't stop circling, which is that I no longer know how many times we have done this. I'm recording this for whoever finds us next. I need you to understand, before I even begin, that by the time you hear it, the warning is already useless, because hearing it is the thing that brings you. But I have to try anyway. He would want me to try. The Vigil was a recovery ship. That's a gentle word for what we did. We went out to the places, ships died, and we brought back the black boxes and the bodies and the bad news. 11 years I did that work. I have heard more last words than anyone should. You get good at it, or you get out. We were 3 weeks into a routine patrol arc, the long, boring kind where you drift through a shipping corridor listening for anything that shouldn't be there, when the corridor handed us a beacon. I caught it first. That was my job, to sit in the dark with the array wrapped around my skull and pull threads out of the noise. The beacon came in faint and clean, a standard distress carrier riding a frequency we hadn't used in a long time, pulsing the old 3-in-1 pattern that means souls aboard, come quick. I logged it. I started the analysis the way I'd done 1,000 times. Source bearing, range estimate, and then signal age, because a fossil is only useful if you know how old it is. The number that came back was 512 years. I ran it again. I assumed I'd fed the algorithm garbage. A signal that old should have decayed into nothing, smeared flat by 5 centuries of dust and gravity. This one hadn't. It was crisp. It was strong. It was, by every measurement I trusted, both ancient and brand new, which is a sentence that should not be able to exist. I called the commander up to the array. Marcus Adiemi had run recovery longer than I'd been alive. Nothing surprised him anymore. He listened to the beacon, read my numbers, and frowned in the particular way that meant he was already drafting the report in his head. "Carrier standard," he said. "Pattern standard. Age is wrong, but instruments drift. We answer it." "There's something else," I said. I pulled up the handshake. Every vessel ever built broadcasts, a transponder identity buried in its distress carrier, a cryptographic signature unique to that hull, generated at construction and never reused. Not once, not in the entire history of the registry. It's how you tell one grave from another. The 500-year-old beacon was broadcasting the Vigil signature, our hull, our exact key, the one welded into our own transmitter, the one that wouldn't have been generated for another 5 centuries, because the Vigil was 19 years old and her class didn't exist when that signal was supposedly sent. Adiemi was quiet for a long time. The array hummed between us. "Instruments drift," he said again, but softer now, like he was trying to convince the room. We answered it. Of course we answered it. You always answer. I should tell you about Theo, because everything after this only matters because of him. Theo Sorensen was our medic. He was also my little brother. I'm the reason he was aboard. Our mother raised us alone, and she died slowly, the kind of slow that gives you time to make promises. I promised her I'd look after him. He was 16 and angry and brilliant, and he wanted to go to the black the way I had. And when he qualified as a medic, I could have let him take a posting anywhere, somewhere safe, somewhere planetside. Instead, I pulled 3 strings I shouldn't have and got him assigned to my ship, because looking after him felt like keeping him where I could see him. I have replayed that decision more times than I can count. More times, I think, than even I know. When we were small and the lights went out, our mother had a thing she'd say. We'd be scared of the dark, both of us crammed into one bed, and she'd sit in the doorway where we could just see her shape, and she'd say, "Count the lights and come home." We never knew what it meant. There weren't any lights. But you'd lie there counting nothing in the dark, and somehow it worked, and you'd fall asleep. Month, the pattern cracked open, and inside it there was a voice. It was distorted, stretched, half buried in 500 years of static. But it was a woman's voice, and it was saying coordinates, our coordinates, the same intercept point we were already flying toward. And after the coordinates, it said 4 words I couldn't make out, and then the carrier closed back over it like water over a stone. I played it for the crew. Calloway, our sensors officer, went pale and said it sounded familiar and wouldn't say more than that. Basov, who flew the ship and feared nothing, asked me to turn it off. Adiemi listened 3 times and then told me to stop bringing it to him until I had the 4 words. Theo listened to it alone with my headset in the dark of the array room. When he took the headset off, his face was wrong. Not scared. Something quieter. "Nadia," he said. "She sounds like you." I told him it was distortion. I told him 500 years of static will make any voice sound like any other voice. I told myself the same thing, twice, and went to sleep. It was in the 6th month that I found out where the signal was actually coming from. I'd been triangulating the source for weeks, refining the bearing, and the numbers kept doing something I refused to look at directly. The closer we got, the smaller the gap between the beacon's apparent position and ours became. Normal, I told myself. We're approaching the source. The gap should shrink, but it shrank past the point where it made sense. And one night, alone with the array, I finally stopped lying and ran the triangulation honestly, with no assumptions, letting the numbers point wherever they pointed. They pointed at us. Not at a spot ahead of us. At us. The bearing to the 500-year-old distress call resolved to a point inside our own hull, aft of the array room, in the compartment that held the transmitter. I sat there for a long time with my hands flat on the console, not moving, because I had the sudden animal certainty that if I moved, it would become real. Then I got up and I walked aft, and I opened the transmitter compartment, and I looked at our beacon. It was live. The status board glowed a calm, steady green. Transmitting. Our distress beacon, the one that only activates when a human being flips the guarded switch on the bridge, the one that had never been touched in 19 years of service, was broadcasting. It had been broadcasting, the logs said, since before the vigil ever left the yard, since before we were a crew, since before the hull was finished. The signal we had been chasing across 8 months and 400 billion kilometers of empty space was coming from the compartment behind my own quarters. It always had been. We had been following ourselves. I cut the power to it. I physically pulled the breaker, killed the antenna, severed every line I could reach. The beacon stayed green. The pulse kept coming through the hull, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, patient as ever. You cannot turn off a thing that is already 500 years in your past. I understand that now. I didn't then. Then I just stood in that compartment and listened to my own ship calling for help in a voice that sounded like mine, and I felt the first edge of something I have no good word for. Not fear. Recognition. The feeling of remembering a thing you haven't done yet. I went to the bridge and I told Adiemi we needed to turn around. He looked at me with those tired, patient eyes and he said, "Sorensen, the source is 2 days out. Whatever's making that signal, the answer is there, not behind us. We finished the intercept. We always finish the intercept. We always finish the intercept." He'd said versions of that sentence my whole career. It had never once sounded like a curse before. We arrived at the coordinates on the 8th month, to the day. There was nothing there. I want to be precise about that, because it matters. The intercept point was empty. Our instruments showed clean vacuum, no debris, no wreck, no anomaly, the beacon screaming from a spot in space that held nothing at all. Basov flew us a careful spiral through the volume, and we found exactly the kind of nothing you'd expect 500 light years from anywhere. And then Calloway, watching the gravity gauges, said, "That's not right." And the stars went out. Not all of them. A circle of them. A perfect black disk opened ahead of us where a slice of the star field had been, and the disk had an edge, clean and sharp, the way a hole punched in paper has an edge. The gravity readings climbed. The ship groaned. And out of the black disk, slowly, the way something surfaces from deep water, came a ship. It was the Vigil. I need you to understand that I don't mean a ship like ours. I don't mean the same class, the same model, a sister hull. I mean it was the Vigil. Our running lights were burned out in the same pattern. Our hull number was stenciled in the same place, faded but legible. There was a long, curved scar along the dorsal plating where, 3 years ago, Basov had clipped a docking spar at Ceres and Adiemi had chewed him out for a week. The scar was there. On that ship. Older, deeper, wrapped in 5 centuries of micrometeorite pitting until it looked less like a scar and more like a wound that had never been allowed to close. The derelict drifted, dead and dark, and the beacon pulse swelled until it filled the whole hull, and I understood that we had found the source. The 500-year-old distress call was coming from that wreck, and that wreck was us. Nobody spoke. Basov's hands were shaking on the controls. Theo had come up to the bridge, and he was standing very close to me, the way he used to when the lights went out, and I could feel him breathing. Adiemi gave the order in a voice with no bottom in it. We bored. The wreck's airlock cycled for us. It knew our codes. Of course it did. They were our codes. The smell hit me first, through the suit, which should have been impossible. Cold metal and old paper, and something underneath, dry and sweet, the smell of things that died a long time ago in vacuum and never got the chance to rot. The corridors were our corridors. The handprint scuffs on the walls were where we put our hands. There was a coffee mug magnetized to the rail outside the galley. The ugly orange one Calloway hated, floating exactly where Calloway always left it, the ceramic gone gray with age. We moved through our own ship as it would be in 500 years. The dust of us hung in the air. And the deeper we went, the quieter everyone got, because we were all doing the same arithmetic, and none of us wanted to be the one to say the answer out loud. We found the crew on the bridge, 5 of them, strapped into the seats, suited, helmets on, the way you secure yourself when you know the end is coming and you want to be found with some dignity. The vacuum had kept them. 5 centuries had drawn their faces tight over the bone, hollowed the eyes, turned them into something between sleep and stone. But the suits had names stenciled on the chest, the way ours did. Adiemi, Basov, Calloway, Sorensen. There were 2 of us. There always were. I made Theo stay back by the hatch. I don't know why, as if he hadn't already seen. I went to the seat marked Sorensen, N, and I looked down at the woman strapped into it, and it was me. Older, worn down to leather and bone. But the small scar through my left eyebrow was there, the one I've had since I was 9, the one Theo gave me with a thrown toy and cried about for an hour. It was there, on her face, 500 years dead, and in her gloved hands, held against her chest the way you'd hold something precious, was a recorder. It was the same model I keep in my breast pocket, the one I am speaking into right now. I took it from her hands. They didn't resist. They just opened, gently, like they'd been waiting to give it to me. I should have walked away. I know that. There is a version of this where I put the recorder down and I gather my crew, and I run for the airlock, and I never learn what's on it. I don't think that version exists anymore. I don't think it ever did, but I'd like to believe it could have. I played it. It was my voice. Calm, the way I'm trying to be calm now. It said, "My name is Nadia Sorensen. I was the signals officer aboard the recovery vessel Vigil." It said the official record was true but incomplete. It described a beacon 512 years old carrying our own transponder key. It described the brother I'd brought aboard because looking after him felt like keeping him where I could see him. It was this recording, the one you are listening to, word for word, beat for beat, every sentence I have said since I started speaking, already spoken, already 500 years old, sitting in the dead hands of my own corpse. I have tried to find the place where her words and mine split apart, the place where she got something wrong, where I could prove I was different, where I could grab the wheel of my own life and turn it. There is no such place. I say what she said. I have started to be able to feel the next sentence arriving a half second before I think it, the way you feel a word on the tip of your tongue, except the word is my whole life, and it has already happened. That is the horror of it, and I need you to really hear this part, because it's the only thing I have to give you. A distress call is supposed to be a beginning. Someone, somewhere, in trouble, reaching out for the first time. It has an origin, a moment it started. Ours didn't. The Vigil follows a 500-year-old distress call. The Vigil reaches the source. The source is the Vigil, 500 years dead, broadcasting a recording made by its own signals officer. That recording is the call. We followed it here. We became the wreck that sends it. And the wreck that sends it is what we followed. There is no first Vigil. I have looked for her the way a drowning person looks for the surface. There is no original crew, no real distress, no actual emergency at the start of the chain that everything after is just an echo of. It is a circle with no center, a signal that is its own source. We did not stumble into someone else's tragedy. We are the tragedy, and we are also the recording of it, and we are also the rescuers who come, again and again, forever, because the call sounds like someone who needs us. It was never a rescue. It was a recruitment. And the bait, the thing that makes the next crew burn 8 months across the dark toward their own grave, is the most honest bait there is. It's a voice asking for help. It's the exact thing people like us cannot leave unanswered. The loop doesn't trick us into coming. It just knows what we are. I found Theo in the wreck's medical bay. I told myself maybe this vigil was different. Maybe in this dead version there were only 5, the way the bridge had only 5 seats filled. And maybe my brother had stayed home this time, somewhere safe, somewhere planetside, the way I should have let him. He hadn't. There was a 6th body in medical where a medic would be. The suit said Sorensen, T. The vacuum had kept him too. 500 years hadn't been kind, but I knew the set of his shoulders. I have known it his whole life. In his hands, the way mine had held the recorder, he held a strip of fabric. It was the name patch off his own flight suit, the one our mother re-stitched when he was 19 because the original had frayed, the one with her crooked, careful needlework still visible in the thread. He'd torn it off and held it against his chest at the end. To have a piece of her. To have a piece of home, when home was 500 light years and 500 years away, and the only voice left was the call. My Theo was still alive. He was back at the hatch on the bridge where I'd left him, breathing, warm, 24 years old. And I was standing over the version of him that I bring here every single time. The version I will always bring, because I will always pull those 3 strings. Because letting him take a safe posting will always feel like letting go of his hand in the dark. I understood then what the loop actually costs. It isn't my death. I could pay my own death. It's that every turn of the circle, I do this to him again. I answer the call, and I bring my brother, and I lose him. And I don't even get to remember the last time, so that I might choose differently. The forgetting is the cruelest part. The forgetting is how it keeps us coming. I went back to the bridge. I had the recorder in my hand. The 4 words my dead voice couldn't quite reach. The 4 words at the end of the message that I'd spent 8 months unable to decode. I understood now that I hadn't decoded them because I hadn't said them yet. I knew how to break it. That's the thing. I want you to know that I knew. The loop runs on the call. If the call is never sent, the next vigil never hears it, never burns out into the dark, never arrives, never becomes the wreck. All I had to do was not finish the recording, not say the last 4 words, leave the message incomplete, a broken fossil that no one could follow home, end the chain by leaving a door open instead of closing it. All I had to do was stay quiet. Adiemi was calling everyone back to the airlock. The black disk behind the wreck was widening, the gravity climbing, and I knew, the way I know everything now, that when we crossed back through it, we would not come out where we went in. We would come out at the start. 3 weeks into a routine patrol arc. A faint, clean beacon in the corridor. Souls aboard, come quick. And I would catch it first, because that is my job, and I would not remember any of this, because the forgetting is part of the machine. Theo came and stood next to me. He looked at the dead bridge, at the 6 of us strapped into the dark, and his face did the quiet thing again. And he understood, I think, as much as anyone can understand a circle from the inside. "We've been here before," he said. "Haven't we? I could have lied. I'm so good at lying. I've done it to myself my whole life, more times than even I know." "Yes," I said. He nodded slowly. Then he did the thing he'd done 100 times through 100 cabin walls after 100 bad recoveries. He looked at me, my little brother, 24 and brave, and already half gone, and he said it. "Count the lights and come home, Nadia." And there they were, the 4 words. Not 4, 6. My dead voice on the recorder hadn't said "come quick" at the end of the call. She'd said the only thing that would ever make a crew like us drop everything and burn across 5 centuries of dark toward a grave. She'd said the thing that sounds like our mother in a lit doorway. She'd said the thing that sounds like home. I am recording this so you'll know. whoever you are, on whatever vigil, in whatever turn of the circle. The beacon you're chasing is yours. The wreck at the end of it is you. The voice is mine, and by now, maybe it sounds like yours. And the worst thing I can tell you is that it is not lying. There really are souls aboard. They really do need you. It's just that the souls are your own, and coming for them is what kills you. I had a choice. Stay quiet, leave the message broken, and maybe, end it. But Theo is in there. He's in there every time. And some part of me that is older than reason, that our mother sewed into me along with the rest, cannot leave him in the dark uncalled, cannot let the door close on him for good. If staying quiet saves the next crew, but leaves my brother lost in a circle with no voice reaching for him, then I am not the person our mother raised, and I never was, and there was never any version of me who could do it. So I'm not going to stay quiet. I'm sorry. I have been sorry for 500 years, and I will be sorry for 500 more, and I will not stop, because stopping means letting go of his hand. The disc is open. Adiemi is calling. The light from it is coming through the Rex bridge windows, cold and clean, and I can feel the start of everything rushing up to meet me. The patrol arc, the faint beacon, the version of me who doesn't know yet. Theo's waiting at the hatch. He's looking back at me. He's smiling, the way he smiles when he's scared and pretending not to be. So here are the last words. Here is the call. Here is the bait, the truest bait there is, going out into the dark for the next of us to follow home. Count the lights and come home. If you made it to the end, thank you for staying in the dark with me. Stories like this one only spread because of you, the ones who listen all the way through and sit with the silence instead of skipping past it. If it stayed with you, a like or a comment helps more than you'd think. And if you want more long-form cosmic nightmares, the kind that are still going when you close your eyes, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, keep looking up. And if you ever pick up a signal that sounds like someone you love calling you home, take the bearing twice before you answer it.